Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Conscious Marketer podcast. This is Richard here. Hi, Kylie.
Hello.
And we're joined today by Nina Manolson. She's a body peace coach, and I really love the word peace in that phrase. She helps people end the war with food and body and finally feel true at home in their body as it is. She's known for her deeply feminist, anti-diet body peace approach. She brings 30 years of experience as a therapist, a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, body trust guide, and psychology of eating teacher to help women create a respectful and trusting relationship with their food and their body. Hi, Nina. Welcome to the Conscious Marketer podcast.
Thank you so much. It is just a pleasure to be with both of you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we always start out by asking kind of what brought you to your current line of work, like what's your kind of backstory and pivot point? Has it been something that you've always known, or was there a point where like, oh my God, I didn't really realize I wanted to do this with my life?
I would say a little bit of both. So if you think about my line of work being body peace work, right, helping women feel at home in their body, the reason I do it is because I didn't. I was like an expert at body war. I was the expert at what's the next diet, what's the next fitness regime, how do I change this body to fit into that teeny tiny box that our world says is beautiful, and that the culture says is appropriate for women, right? So I was forever in the hustle, what Brene Brown calls the hustle for worthiness. And so that led me into an inner inquiry, and became both a professional path and a personal path of really like, how do I feel comfortable in my own skin as it is, so that I'm not always looking for Monday morning to start something new and do something else and try to be perfect this week. So really the journey was becoming a therapist and becoming a health coach also, because I was like, oh, maybe I'll get all the right foods and that will tell me how to do this. And that didn't work either. So really went drilling down into how do we truly have a relationship with our body. And so eventually that grew into this work that I do with women, which is body peace work.
What does your process look like when you work with people?
Yeah, so there's different processes depending on who's coming to the table, right? So if someone's coming and they're, you know what, I'm not sure, maybe not, like they're still in diet culture, they're still like, maybe I'll sign up for Weight Watchers or Noom or, whatever the latest, greatest keto, blah, 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 blah thing is, maybe I'll do that. Oh, but I don't really want to go on another diet. And they're right on that bridge of one foot in diet culture, one foot in body liberation work, which is what this work is. Then the work is really unlearning. Let's really talk about how dieting has been for you in your life. Let's talk about the $72 billion industry that goes into selling you the fact that you're not good enough. Right? So there's a lot of unlearning in that beginning process. If someone comes to me and goes, oh my gosh, I am done with dieting. I can't do another one. I am tired of somebody telling me what to eat. And you know what? I've gotten really good at listening to what I need in my body and what nourishes me, but I still don't feel good in my body. And I still wish I had a smaller body, or I still wish I was more toned. Then we're more into body image work. And in that work, we're doing some deeper work around it with some of my groups, body peace keepers, body peace sages. In the beginning, it's more some of the beginning work, body peace starter kit, body peace seekers, have a masterclass. So it sort of depends where people are on their journey to really feeling like, you know what, this is me and this is good. I am happy in this me.
I'm kind of curious how you kind of landed on this idea of, or how you were able to see this war that was happening inside of you. And then how kind of the positioning, because I think peace is a really interesting position. We don't think that we don't normally associate needing to have peace with our bodies, so I'm kind of curious how that came about.
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of it was because I knew what the struggle felt like. And what was being positioned to me as the opposite was body love and being body positive. And I was like, that feels a little aspirational. I have been married a long time. I love my husband dearly. Does it feel like ooey gooey positive love every single day of 30 years? No. That's not real life. That's not a real relationship. We wake up sometimes grumpy. We have fights over, I don't know, the dishwasher, ridiculous things. It's not always lovey-dovey, ooey gooey. So, what is a real relationship? A real relationship is based on a foundation of peace and mutual respect, right? I often think of it this way as well, right? Besides relationships in a marriage. And it's funny because when I'm sitting on a plane and somebody says to me, so Nina, what do you do? And I would say body peace coach. They'd be like, what? So I often say, well, I'm a couples counselor, except instead of working with a woman and her partner, I work with a woman and her body, right? We're trying to create a relationship based in peace. Another way to think about it, right? Think about Israel and Egypt. They were not always like, woohoo, we're like great buddies, but they created a peace accord. They don't like hang out. They don't like, oh, we're besties. We love each other, but they know how to have a conversation. They know how to respond to each other. They know how to listen, right? They respect each other as somebody that's important and in their world. That's what we want in the relationship with our body. So often people, their bodies are speaking or even yelling in pain or exhaustion, and we're got our fingers in our ears going la 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 la, I can't hear you, right? And there's that relationship of ignoring. That's not love, and that's not hate. That's just neglect. We want a supportive, connected, nourishing, and this is where the word peace came in, peaceful relationship with our body. One where we can be with her or him for the duration. Instead of being adversarial, we want to be allied. That's what a peaceful relationship is. We want to be an ally for ourselves, for our body.
So how does all this relate to entrepreneurs or marketers who are listening to this episode today?
Yeah. So I've worked with a lot of women who are in business, and what I see is when they don't feel at home in their body, when they don't feel at home in their own skin, their confidence is reduced markedly. And then their visibility is reduced markedly. So there's this sense of, you know what, I'm not quite good enough. I don't look like the shiny, gurus of marketing. I don't have that sort of, deluxe Hollywood look. So I shouldn't show up. Well, as soon as we don't show up, that really hurts our business. It hurts our marketing. And so body peace, being able to have an authentic relationship with our body and being on our side, really having wind in our sails and being willing to be visible, puts us out in front with our own unique brand of beauty. And that's a really important phrase, our own unique brand of beauty, because often we're raised as women and men that there's this one brand of beauty, there's this one brand of successful. And that's not true. And so in body peace work, we reclaim our brand of beauty and we get to come forward. The other reason why it's so important is when people are at war with their bodies and struggling with unwanted eating, binge eating, secret eating, compulsive eating, nighttime eating, restricted eating, all the disordered eatings that really get in our way and we spend so much time. Should I eat it? Shouldn't I? Oh, I can't believe I ate that. It's literally taking up valuable real estate in our brain. In fact, there was a client I had, and she was creating her company, and she said, I just spend too much time thinking about what should I eat and what's the next diet and should I have eaten it? And she said, honestly, if I could reclaim that space in my brain. She said, I don't even know what's possible, right? Then we started working. And a few months later, she was like, I just went back and signed up for a graduate level leadership program at a very prestigious school. She said, I couldn't have done it before. I didn't have the bandwidth and I didn't have the internal confidence, not the bravado confidence that we all think, oh yeah, they're so confident, but that internal deep, I know who I am and I'm good with that. And that's what reclaiming that relationship with her body did. It gave her back herself.
Yeah, I really love that. And you know what I love about your work, it kind of dovetails into some of the things that we teach. But sometimes we talk about, are you just marketing, or are you kind of selling a method, or are you creating something bigger in the world that's based around like a movement, you know? And so, and because if you can create a movement, then you become kind of the leader of a movement where people can only well, they ideally you train other people, but initially they come to you and you're kind of like the founder of this movement. But I could see, you know, like the body piece, I can see it being like a larger movement. And from a marketing perspective, that really differentiates what you do from probably, you know, thousands of other diet and health coaches out there. You know, have you found that to be true?
It is. And there's two things I want to say about that. One is I really, really relate. When I first started doing this work, I felt like I was selling myself. And I was like, it's not me. It's this body liberation work. It's body peace I am actually want to get out in the world. And as soon as I made that pivot to like, okay, you can work with me. Yeah, this is work I know. But what we're doing is body peace. That's what we're doing. We're creating a relationship with your body, and you actually are the expert. Then I can get behind that 100%. I can be as visible. I could stand and talk about that until I'm blue in the face and can't stand anymore, because I'm not going like, look at me, I'm so cool. Like that to me gets kind of boring and a little hard to do for hours and hours and hours on end. It doesn't feel authentic, but I can stand behind body peace because I know that works. Right? I know some days I'm great and smart and some days I'm tired. Like that's human beings. But body peace doesn't waver. Body peace has a through line that impacts all of us and our relationship with our body. So that's the first thing I just want to say. When you said that, I was like, oh, I so relate to that. And the other thing is when you said, oh, what about like, how does this differentiate? You know, what differentiates, and I'm not the only person doing body liberation work in the world, absolutely not. I stand, you know, with wonderful colleagues. People are doing psychology of eating and body trust and intuitive eating. But what differentiates me is that I'm not buying into the body love model. And I'm not buying into the like, whatever, do whatever, it doesn't matter. And I'm not buying into the, here's the program. Right? I am really sitting into our body has wisdom, deep, deep wisdom. We have been trained into ignoring it. In fact, and because I'm more of an expert with women, when I ask, how are you? First thing they'll say, my kids are, my husband, my partner, my dog, right? We're so trained into how's everybody else that we actually need the training to come home. How am I? What does my body know? What does my body need? What would nourish my body, right? And why? And using all the unwanted, either the criticism, because the criticism is brutal that happens in people's head. What I hear women say to themselves in the mirror is just alarming, like things that we would never, ever, ever say to any other human being. People say to themselves in the mirror, oh, you're disgusting. Oh, you're just lazy, like just terrible slurs and insults. And so if we can get in there into that unwanted eating, unwanted criticism, then we can shift into oh, what does really support my whole being in feeling the most vibrant, the most nourished, the most alive. And then we get to put that out in the world, and people are like, yeah, I'll take some of that.
Yeah, it's really inspirational. And I think, it's interesting because we more and more inside our company, we're talking, because we work with a lot of like therapists and spiritual people and meditators and self-development. And it's kind of like they see like they're doing their business and then they have their spiritual practice on the side. And what we're kind of showing people is like, well, look, if you put yourself on camera and you have to overcome the fear to get out there, and then it's kind of like a spiritual process. But I can imagine as people go inward and have to figure out, the perceptions they have about their own body and how they've been programmed or not programmed. It's this process. It's like this massive self-growth process. It probably affects more than one area of their life. Is that true?
100%. I really see our unwanted inner criticism, our unwanted eating behavior as a doorway, right? I often say some people want personal development and growth, and they'll go see a guru, they'll go to Tony Robbins, they'll do whatever they do. For those of us with food and body issues, all we have to do is eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or look in the mirror, and all of our stuff comes up. We don't need loud music and big fancy prompts. Our stuff is right there every day. When we open the closet and get dressed in the morning, all of our undigested issues come right up, of not enoughness, of being too much, of being too little, of being too big, of being, not tall and blonde and thin like our culture says we're supposed to be, right? All of those things. And what's very powerful is that those issues are doorways into other parts of our life and other healing that we need to do for ourselves. And so if we can look at those instead of trying to hide them and push them back under the rug of like, oh, let me just fix this, like I'm broken, let me go on the next diet. Instead, bring it forward and go, oh, I'm struggling here. What is this struggle? What do I need? How can I best be supported? And really see it as a doorway to our inner work. Because underneath all those statements, right? Like I hear all the time, I feel fat, right? So what's underneath that? What's underneath that is I feel sad, I feel mad, I feel scared, I feel vulnerable, I feel picked on, I feel all the things, right? We have to look underneath these issues to see what's really going on, because there's transformation in there, and that transformation makes us very powerful.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So when you say this can help us to have windows into other areas of our lives, are there certain areas that you see come up over and over again?
Absolutely. So when people start to do this healing, often what comes up is, where do I really want to put my time and attention? Because when we're caught in the hustle of fixing a body that is not broken, by the way, or fixing, your looks, which are just fine, by the way, when we're in that, our energy is sucked off, right? An analogy is you're driving the car, right? You're trying to get somewhere, but there's this steady leak in the gas tank. And that is, I'm not enough. I'm too fat. I ate the wrong thing. I can't believe I was up all night binging. And it makes the car go slow and eventually stop. And so we want to look at, wait, how did this leak get here? And when we repair that leak, when we do the healing work of that never ending, eroding, soul sucking conversation that we have with ourselves, then what opens up is, what do I want? Right? Like that woman who was like, I'm going to go to grad school. Right? Or other people who are like, you know what? I'm finally going to have that photo shoot and I'm going to make that real, and I'm going to put myself out in social media, and I'm going to put myself out on my website, and I'm going to speak what I believe instead of hiding. That fundamentally is the biggest thing. It's the hiding that happens when we're in the war with our body, because there's a feeling of not enoughness. And when we do that healing work, we get to step back into who we are and show up, because the world needs us. The world needs all of us. We have a very unique gift to give, right? People often think like, I work with women because I want to heal their relationship with their body. Yes, I do want to heal the relationship with food and body. And what I'm most interested in is those women go out and do what they're supposed to do in the world, because we need them. And if they're at home not going out because they don't feel like they can sit in a group of women because everybody's eating and they feel self-conscious, or they feel like they're the biggest person in the room, that doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah, I love how you bring it to the bigger impact. And sometimes we just think we're doing a reel or a video, or we're doing a social post or whatever it is, or being on a podcast like this. And it's hard to see, like, even this last week, we've gotten a couple of messages from people that just thanking us for how it turned certain things in their life around. And in your world, if you can start to affect women who are, taking better care of themselves and having less inner dialogue. And then I really like how you pointed out that a lot of times they're hiding, and generally hiding and marketing aren't they don't go together. They're not like good partners.
They are not good partners.
Sometimes we have a phrase we say and sometimes it's shade. It's what we hear people say is, it's not about me, and I'm just being, like there's kind of like this false humility. But when you kind of dig deep enough, it's like they're actually kind of hiding from their bigger purpose. And on the surface, they're doing it out of protection, but really what's happening is they're not serving themselves. And then also they're just not creating the impact and effect that they really could have in the world. I'm curious, what are, just kind of to turn it back to some of your business and how you've grown your business, because you have kind of a successful niche. Could you just maybe share one or two things that you've been doing to put yourself out and to not hide and to make sure that you have the impact? Because I think our listeners would love to hear about that.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's like the first question, the one question you ask, and I'm like, what am I doing? The first thing I want to say, because people say, well, you're doing so much, right? I'm on podcasts. I'm actually about to create my own podcast. I just released a body peace app. I'm on social media. I do a lot. And the first thing I want to say is not all at once. This didn't happen all at once. I chose one thing. And the one thing that I chose initially was writing. I write body peace poems. I write poems about our relationship with our body. And someone would think like, that's not very like marketing, but it came out very organically, because at that time my kids were teenagers and they were slam poets. And so that was sort of the language of our family. And so I started writing about my relationship with my body through poetry. And I started putting my poems out there. That is very vulnerable. That is just me and my inner process. And people were like, yes, I relate. I get it. And those poems have gone far. And it's so interesting to me, because every time I write one and I'm like, oh, I don't know, can I put that out in public? Like, that's really raw. And I'm like, yeah, but this is how women are with their body. This is how we are. So I'm just going to say it. Right. So I think what I'm really saying in terms of talking about these poems is, it doesn't have to necessarily look like reels, which I do now. It doesn't have to look like it pointing at things, which I do now. It doesn't have to look like podcasts, which I do now. It doesn't have to look like an app, which I do now. Start where you are. What are you passionate about, right? I know people who draw, and what they put out on social media are these incredible, beautiful images that come from their soul. To me, what we're desperate for in the public sphere of marketing is someone who's just being themselves, raw, unfiltered, and real. And I think that's why my poems speak, because it's just me doing life in this body, and it's complicated, right? So whatever it is that's your thing, do it. That's my encouragement. And don't be shy.
One of
And
the,
yes, it's vulnerable.
yeah, one of the most interesting things to me that you've said today is about bandwidth. And I'm always looking for ways to optimize. I'm really into optimization. So what does it look like when people start to free up that bandwidth? Where do you see them putting it? What does that look like for them? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, that is when we get that bandwidth, right? When we get that capacity back, because we've reclaimed our energy, because we're not obsessing about what we ate and what diet we're going on. It's a very individual thing. What do I do? Okay, so now I have more capacity. It's a very individual. What do you want to do? Right? Where do you want to put your energy? It's worth exploring. I think that there's no one answer. Great, you have your energy back. Now you need to do X, Y, and Z. You have your energy back. This is your life. How do you want to play it? Where do you want to actually invest in yourself? And very importantly, where do you also want to get support? Because that's always lacking. I would say 100%, especially for women. Where do you need support in your life and your business?
Yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing today. And I love kind of where we ended up with, I loved how you expressed yourself through poetry. Kylie is also a poet here. She didn't say that, but I'll say it. And so I can imagine poetry, song, art, when you put yourself out there, it is kind of like putting art out there. It's like putting a part of your soul online. In fact, and if you don't do that, then you have like soulless marketing that kind of just lands flat and nobody cares. And then you're like, why didn't I get so many likes? It's because you didn't put any heart into it. You didn't take any risk.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then your message of vulnerability and just to be raw and unfiltered and to get out there. So I really appreciate all the advice that you've given us today. If people want to learn more about you and your body peace method and what you do, how can they find more about you, Nina?
Yeah, the best place to go is Body Peace with Nina. It's all one word. .com. That's my website. And on there's some great free resources. There's a free masterclass that really dives into the different kinds of relationships we have with our body. There's a link to the Body Peace app as well. That's free and has a ton of resources in there and tools to help you get going on your journey. And there's also a practicing body peace journal on there that's free. And on it, in that journal, there's some of my poetry, but even more importantly, there's 20 questions that I would ask you if we were sitting together over Zoom or in person, to invite you into the inner inquiry. How is your relationship with your body? How is your relationship with your food? So it invites you into the conversation, into the relationship that is so important. That's the foundation for creating peace with your body.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. And it's always interesting to me because I'm always so interested in the work you do, but I'm also interested in how you present the work and the marketing. It's always these two things flowing back and forth. So I think you've done an amazing job getting your work on the world. So thank you for being on our podcast, Nina.
Oh, thank you both so much. Total privilege.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for all the listeners out there, if you want to get the show notes or get the links to if you're listening in the car and you want to get all of her links, you can go to consciousmarketer.com/podcast. Everything will be there. And if you're listening or on a computer and you want to leave us a review, we always ask that you go to iTunes or Spotify. That matters a lot so that we can get our work into the world. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.